Hi everybody, this is Russ with HealthForward Online, and today I'm down in Southern California, and I have the pleasure of sitting with Cary Nosler. He has a very popular show on the radio called The Wide World of Health. It's one of my, it is one of my favorite shows on the radio that I look forward to every single week. So I contacted Cary, and he was very nice enough to come down and join me. So hello, Cary.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Let's just, for those that maybe don't know who you are, just give a very brief background of who you are and what you're doing.
I consider myself a health and fitness advocate.
Okay.
I've been in the business of interviewing what I hope are the top people in the whole area of nutrition, fitness, exercise, diet, and all the things that encompass that for some time now. Trying to do the kind of research that would bring people to the forefront, consumers, to help them make intelligent decisions about how they spend their time and their money in the health field. It's my passion. It's what I do in my own life, and so I kind of use what I like to think of what I'm going to bring to everybody else, and it seems to work out.
So that's sort of, I like to ask people what their guiding principles are. That's pretty much, would you say, your guiding principles?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Like I said, provide information so that you can make informed decisions.
Okay. Now, The Wide World of Health, tell people exactly about this show. It's been on a long time. How long has it been on?
In various guises in different stations, but on KST right now, I think I've probably been doing it there for about 15 years.
Okay.
I think. I don't really know.
Yeah, I discovered it about 3 years ago, I think. So.
And it's gone through I think I started out as an hour, and now it's 2 hours, 2 1-hour interviews most of the time, when I'm not preempted by some other event, like a baseball game or something.
And you interview a guest, a couple of guests, one guest an hour. So.
Yeah, unless I can't find someone, and then again, when you're in the health field, it's not like the news business. Every day there's something that happens, and you report on the news, and you can fill up your space, whether you want to hear it or not. The health field, you got to go out and find these people. Yeah. And even though you only do 2 a week, well, sometimes it's hard to do. Good people. I mean, I can get anybody to talk health. The kind of people I like. Sometimes I do a news you can use. Yeah. When I don't really have a guest, and I do a lot of work in gathering information. So sometimes I like to have the opportunity just to let people hear what I've been gathering.
So how many guests would you say you've interviewed over the years? Hundreds and 1,000?
Well, I've got maybe, I don't know, those big sheets, they print 10 thing back and forth for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I go back there and look at all the different people I meet. I forget sometimes even who I've talked to.
I bet.
Can you? I've been a first. I was one of the first guys to interview Barry Sears, the author of The Zone. I've had some pretty controversial shows at times. And I remember in Vitamin D, I got onto Vitamin D, which is a huge thing now. Yeah. Dr. Michael Hollick, before people thought 400 IUs was it. And he was the first guy to come out and really say, hey, there's something else going on here. So got into that a long time ago. Astaxanthin got into that a long time ago. I've kind of spot these trends every once in a while. And just kind of like to kind of go with them.
Do you have, who would you say are some of your favorites? Maybe you mentioned a couple already, but do you have any favorites you've interviewed over the last few years?
Well, some people are good. There's 2 ways to look at that. One is information, and one is who's a good interviewer. Yeah. There's Dr. Sinatra, Stephen Sinatra, cardiologist. Yeah. He's one of the first people to really talk about high doses of CoQ10 for different types of cardiac conditions. He's not only informative, he's a great interviewer. He's just a really good person to talk to. Off the top of my head, I really enjoyed Barry Sears. I enjoy presently all of the kind of in the paleo. I find them to be fascinating. Really good information in terms of digging out stuff that you don't normally get. Yeah. As far as remembering anything that just stands out, I'd have to go back and look at them because there's so many.
Over the years, I bet you've probably tried hundreds of supplements. People have tried it. Are there some of those that you think are valuable that you want to share with people? Let's give people some extra.
I'd say the things that I take over and over that I've taken for years. One has been the systemic enzymes. Woven.
Okay.
But that idea, not enzymes with food, but in between,
Yeah.
to counter inflammation and different types of debris that you'll find in the cardiovascular. That information was so compelling to me that I followed it for years. Probiotics. I've taken those for years and years and years. I was doing probiotic interviews before probiotics were probiotics.
Yeah.
It was hard to convince people that they were even necessary in their diet. Foundationally, if you understand what they do, it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that's been something I've used. Kyolic. I've used garlic for years because it's also fermented.
Okay.
I knew from years ago when I had a teacher in Europe that fermented foods were very important. When I first saw the Kyolic people, they went through that 2-year process of systematically changing the nature of garlic through the fermentation process. I knew there was something valuable there, and they've got a couple of hundred studies that they can point to over the years. So that's a few of them. And then always the antioxidants. I've done those for a long, long time.
Okay.
One that really impressed me early on was the hydroxytyrosol from olives. I was a big fan of olive oil again years and years ago anyway.
Yeah.
For the fellow lives in Texas, it was the Google crowd.
Yeah.
What's the other guy's name? Committed suicide. The no-fat guy. I'm trying to remember his name. Nice guy, anyway.
Yeah.
Now we know that if your cholesterol is too low, you're prone to suicide and depression. And that may have been part of his deal. But you couldn't even mention things like olive oil. But I'd been to Europe and I knew
some didn't make sense.
it's a very important traditional food. So we got into that early on and just the whole issue of fat. And believe it or not, this sounds funny, but back in 1970-something, I was given information on the value of chocolate. And I remember coming back here and looking for chocolate and trying to convince people that there might be something good in bitter, sweet chocolate.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a fight. It took years and years for that one to show up.
Well, one of your people you interviewed, I think it was Dr. Mark Circus, he talked about magnesium is actually an important element in chocolate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's
among other things.
It's nitric oxide release from the chocolate that has all the cardiovascular.
Okay.
It's antioxidant potential. Magnesium is important. Circus, interesting guy. I forgot about him. He's down in South America.
Yeah.
Has the magnesium addiction, among other things.
Yeah. Let's see, what else should we talk about? How about just life tips in general that people can take with them? You've already given some, but just...
I know in my own life, and I think the more I get into the paleo end of it, the more I realize that not only is exercise an essential, but it connects us in a way that allows us to be more fully aware of who we are and where we are, because it was an integral part of survival.
Yeah.
The whole thing with movement and activity, well, you had to be very alert and very well aware. Your brain had to be engaged because you were either going to get something that you could eat and save yourself, or you were going to save yourself from someone who's trying to get you.
Okay.
So all your senses had to be engaged. So not only does it work to help the body, but it's in the whole gestalt of how it fits into who we are is so important. And if you remove those basic things from your diet, you remove a certain kind of intelligence that's been inherent in human beings for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. So the way we're living today, we're taking ourselves away from a certain kind of native intelligence. Granted, we have all the technology and all those other kind of things, but we're missing some very basic grounding because we're just not participating in the kind of activities that are central to our whole existence. So I've often told people I feel the most alive and connected when I exercise. And it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that's good.
You have to be engaged. You may be engaged in a lot of peripheral things. You see everybody every second checking their cell phone.
Yeah.
Like they're afraid they're missing something, but that's a different type of connection. You know, it's independent of the body, and we're separating ourselves so much from that part of this. I think we do so at our own pace.
Okay, that's good advice. So your show, The Wide World of Health, currently it's I'm in Sacramento, so I hear it on Sundays at 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock on KSTE. Right. And I guess if people are not in Sacramento, they obviously can hear it online.
Yeah, a lot of folks online.
KSTE.com.
Plus we have an archive as well, so they can go back.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to go back and look at the podcast. And then I noticed, for those of you listening, I think it's iHeartRadio, an app on the iPhone or the Android. You can pick it up there as well. So
I will say one thing too. When I go back to my archives and I listen to shows that I did, I learn new things too. Because one thing, and this is a tip for people in terms of going back over what you think you know.
Yeah.
I was worried when I started giving talks that I would give them all the information and I would have nothing left to say. And someone said, listen, people only remember 10% of what you say. You could give the same talk every thing and they think you're doing a different talk. So in terms of information, when you're going back, go back over material that you read before and see if you've got it completely the way it should be. Kind of refresh yourself and make sure that you really understand the whole dynamic of what you're trying to learn.
Well, I'd agree with that. I go back and listen to the podcast, and I hear new things second or third time.
I would say too that melatonin is another area that I got into that is just totally fascinating.
Okay. Melatonin's actually a hormone, from what I understand.
It is a hormone, and it's one of the few where there's no real feedback loop like the other hormones. But that, again, that is central to all of our existence, going back into this kind of connecting to the gestalt, because melatonin is key to our survival. So it's very, very important, tied in with vitamin D, tied in with all the kind of things, growth hormone, heart protection, cancer protection. So it's a basic foundational thing, along with the vitamin D and all the other kind of things you need to do.
How about DHEA or 7-keto, some of those? You like those?
Those are interesting. They're very, very important. But again, my personal experience has been that it's very difficult to find someone that understands hormones in their totality. Every time you take anything, there's no such thing as taking one hormone.
Right.
Because there's a cascade effect that takes place in the body. So understanding how to balance those things is very difficult. I know a lot of folks that go and they go to get their hormones tested and they may be put on some kind of a prescription for bioidentical hormones, but then you look at the values and things are not always the way they should because it's very, very difficult. So what you want to do is first do the foundational things that allow the body to naturally produce those hormones. Getting into deep sleep will produce growth hormone.
Okay.
You know, having adequate physical activity will promote testosterone production as well in men. Testosterone then will help regulate DHEA.
Okay.
The 7-keto again won't give you the benefit, some of the anabolic effects of DHEA in the body, but it will give you some of the other physiological things that take place. So it's kind of a different deal. Hormones are very, very important. But look for the kind of things that allow your body to express itself in a way that will help balance some of these things. If anyone's listening, go back and listen to the program I did with Dr. Richard Walker on growth hormone and growth hormone releasing peptide and growth hormone releasing protein.
Okay. I'll be sure to do that.
You understand that one, you got a real handle on where this stuff is really going and where you need to go to rejuvenate the pituitary, to actually, won't make you necessarily live longer, but it will definitely help eliminate some of the gunk that accumulates.
And live healthier.
That's a very, very important show. Might be a little difficult. You might have to listen to it a couple of times.
All right.
That's a very good one.
I'll go back. Let's, how about, while we're in this, the worst foods?
Well, the worst foods appear to be fructose-containing foods, high fructose-containing
Okay.
foods. And if you're a person. It's not just why the foods are bad, but it's the toxins in food. This is an area that's not really explored that much. While sugar is bad and refined flours are bad, what's really bad is the fact that unless you understand some of the Weston Price approach to foods as well, if you're eating these newer foods, you're not just interfering with insulin or other types of regulatory mechanisms in the body. You're introducing potential food toxins that were never a part of our food supply in the past, and that they're responsible for autoimmune difficulties. Autoimmune problems are rampant today. Leaky gut is part of that whole thing. And so when you take, for instance, think of this as like a bell curve. There's some people, again, who are going to be seemingly doing okay with some of these things, but maybe not as good as they'd like to in all the other things in life. There's some people that are going to be just totally blown away by doing certain things. Yeah. And other people that they're just fine. They got the genetics, doesn't matter. They could be eating, cow horn. It won't make any difference for those folks. But they're big people in the middle, all these things that we just kind of take for granted as just part of life. Oh, little rheumatism, little arthritis, little this or that. Those can be influenced by the food toxins in grains. Most of the foods that need some kind of preparation. If you think of how we used to eat, well, we didn't have cooking. Well, we didn't. So we had fire. Well, you didn't have pots. You didn't have pans. You didn't have the kind of things that would transform grain into bread. So they didn't eat them. They might have eaten some seeds when they were green, if they could chew them, but it certainly didn't occupy a big part of whatever they were doing. And same with beans. You can't eat a bean unless you're soaking it and cooking it and doing all kinds of things. So a hunter-gatherer can't go around eating beans. So look at what they were eating, and that's not necessarily saying that's the only thing we can do, but those were foods that contributed to our survival. Now when we introduce the grains and the sugars and the trans fats, foods we never really dealt with, we've got some real problems today. The high omega-6 fats, again, it gets confusing sometimes to people. Your omega-6 or omega-3. Well, there was a balance that humans had for hundreds of thousands of years, about 1-to-1, with the plant foods that we ate and even the animal foods. Now that ratio has been horribly distorted. And the omega-6s are inflammatory in excess. And not only that, but they actually interfere with hormone production because all these fats are part of this chain now in terms of the body producing the prostaglandins, the different kind of things and hormones that we need to survive. Same thing with cholesterol. I had a psychiatrist on last week saying that if you take statin drugs, you run the risk of having some kind of cognitive impairment because the brain's 60% fats. So you're getting all the fat out of the arteries, but you may be draining it from the brain, and the brain doesn't think well when you deprive it of fats. So, kind of look at how we came to where we are, and then when you talk about bad foods, it isn't so much eating too much. That's not really the problem. You can eat I would say that our ancestors ate as much as they could whenever they could. There was never a thing to limit your food intake because they didn't know when they were going to eat. So we have the perfect capacity to eat a lot. Just eat the right stuff.
Good advice. Well, let's finish this up here. How about where do people go to find your show?
You go to kste.com on the net. And for those in Northern California and in the Bay Area, it's 650 AM dial.
Okay. I'll post that down below here so people can find it. Thank you very much for sitting down with me.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
All right.